Hi Andrew, I know that you're not a stranger to Hong Kong racing fans, so can you briefly introduce yourself in front of the camera?
Absolutely. Ian, I'm a journalist. I've been involved in Hong Kong racing now probably for about 6 or 7 years. Yeah. Worked for the South China Morning Post for a bit, one of the English newspapers here, and then obviously worked for the Hong Kong Jockey Club for a while. I've been back in Australia now about a year, but look, it's great to be back in Hong Kong. I love it here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, so can you tell us something about yourself? Is it you're coming from racing background, or what have you, just like when you grow up, is it you're already involved in horse racing?
Not really. I don't come from a racing family. My parents got involved in the racing industry around the Melbourne Cup every year. We'd have a bet on the Melbourne Cup even as a little kid, which we shouldn't have done, but that's okay. Yeah. And then as a teenager, I started to get involved in it more. I loved trying to find a winner and trying to find use data to try and find a winner, and from there it just continued to grow. It became a passion, and then it became my life basically.
So you have mentioned about that the first job you have got in Hong Kong is working for South China Morning Post. So how can you get the position like that?
I was very lucky. So I went across overseas and went to a number of big international meetings while I was still at university, and I met Alan Aitken there, who was the editor of the South China Morning Post, or the racing editor at the time, and he said, look, if there was a position available, he'd always keep me in mind, and one came up about 18 months later. So for me, the most important thing is being able to meet people and just going and networking and talking to people. So like Hong Kong International Races Week, there's always people around who you can meet and have a talk to, and I think that's really the key aspect.
After the South China Morning Post, and then I know that the Jockey Club invited you to be one of the team members. Yes,
it was a great experience. So I was there as a racing content specialist, so doing a lot of work around writing stories and publicising the meetings. I did a lot of tipping as well, and also got the chance to be involved in the social media side as well. So there were a lot of things there within the club, and it was a great time. I loved working for the Hong Kong Jockey Club.
I would say that you're one of the icons on the social media, especially on Twitter, because everyone, if they would like to have some idea of the big race, overseas big race, then they will read your blog and even the tweet. So how can you just like give us some advices to make a nice social media platform?
Look, I think the best thing I've had is to make sure you're engaging people. You talk to people a lot, especially through your social media channels, because that's the way that you drive engagement. You drive people wanting to be involved, is just by engaging them and making them feel like they're a part of that channel. For me, I do try to keep up on everything. It does take a lot of effort at times to be able to keep atop everything that's happening in Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, Europe, the States, but it all works out in the end. And I think as long as you can be short, sharp, concise, I think anyone can make a social media profile like that.
We have seen a lot of blogger or social media, just like Twitter, and there's two different angles. Or one, I would say that there's some very quite famous, popular one that's just showing how he interact with the race, and then not quite informative in my eyes, but he still get a lot of supporters saying that he's really promoting the racing. So how can we just like?
Look, I think there's a room for everyone to be able to coexist. I think that there's, as you say, there's people that like the racing blogger in the UK who is.
I didn't mention the name.
Well, I did there. I did. I think he's got a very big following, and what he does is really engaging and really interesting, and I really like seeing some of his content. Again, as you say, maybe not that informative, but there's a position that he holds and an audience that he has. And I'd say for me, I've got a very an information-based audience and people that are really interested to know what's happening around the world. And so I think there's positions for everyone. It's just about taking your perspective and what suits you well and translating it to social media.
Yeah, so based on your work experience in Hong Kong and overseas, what is the most memorable interview that you have ever done?
Oh, that's a really tough one. I'll never forget the first press conference where I asked a question. It was with Chantal Sutherland, and I asked her a question about Australia and whether she'd ever want to come to Australia. And I just remember that because I was so nervous to ask a question, and you think, oh, these are people that I've really admired. And to see them actually interacting with you, it's always quite nerve-wracking. But I'd also say, to be honest, the most memorable that I've ever had would be here in Hong Kong. I'll never forget talking to John Sires and speaking to him for about an hour.
Wow.
And he, John can be very abrupt, or he can be very long-winded and talk a lot. And this day he was very talkative, and it was just amazing to hear him talk. And I would have learned very little about what he does or what he his training methods. But just to hear him talk, he's got a very methodical way of explaining things, and that was something that I'll just never forget.
And how about horses? Any specific horses that you'd like to mention?
Well, look, I've been very lucky. Over the last decade, I've probably seen most of the best horses race. I was there when Frankel won the Queen Anne in 2012, and that was the most amazing time. I was there for Enable as well when she won the King George the first time. And so that was incredible. I've been lucky to see Black Caviar and Winx, So You Think. Obviously here, Able Friend was a horse that I really enjoyed watching. Just the way in which he won was very special. So I've been very lucky, but Able Friend does hold a special place in my heart. And even though he's a bit of a rogue Pakistan star, still holds a place in my heart as well.
Yeah, so and then you're honored to be the list as the top 35 influential racing youngsters in the racing post, I think, in England. How do you feel that?
That was one of the biggest thrills of my life because, again, I don't come from a racing background. I don't have that racing family, and there are a lot of people in there who had come from very prolific racing families. And so to have started my career, my first job in racing was working in the car park at Rosehill Racecourse, directing people where to park their cars. And so to have managed to get from there to be into that sort of a list, it's probably the biggest honour that I've had, and something that I'm really looking forward to hopefully being able to build on in the years to come.
So actually in the racing there's a lot of position, and then you have been working for the racing content writer and also the racing blogger, and also you can be everything in racing industry. So what would you like to do at the moment?
Oh, that's a really good question. For me, I think I love the media side. I love being able to cover racing and being able to share racing with the world. So that's something I'd like to continue doing. But for me, I also would really like to get in a form analysis side, or even a racing stable sort of side, and being able to help plan campaigns for horses and be involved in their processes from the selection as a yearling or as a tried horse right through to getting them to race stage. So I know that's something you know quite well, and that's something that I'd love to be able to do at some point.
And also there's a lot of people would like to get into racing, especially the younger generation. So do you have any tips for them?
I think it's really important to be passionate, to decide once you want to go down that route to give it everything, but also just to meet people. The racing industry has a lot of people that are willing to help, and look, there are going to be people that knock you along the way. I've certainly had quite a few people that have wanted to tear me down, but I've also had a lot of people that have really wanted to help me out, and I'm really grateful to them. And I think that's something that really proves crucial along the way, is just having those people helping you out and being supporters, and in the end we all help each other to achieve a better place.
I would say that you make use of every opportunity, especially when you're working for South China Morning Post. You build up your image, reputation, then you get the invites from the Jockey Club. After that, you also get invited by your hometown in Australia, so Sky Racing. So can you tell us your role there? Well,
at Sky Racing, until last week, it's unfortunately I'm no longer there, but I was their international racing presenter, and I was getting to focus on Hong Kong, on Europe a lot as well. So a lot of tipping, a lot of just wagering information for people in Australia, and I loved it. It was great to be able to work with some amazing crew members there, and also being able to just talk about international racing all the time. It is my passion,
yes.
and it's something that I know quite a bit about, having experienced plenty of places around the world. So I loved every moment of it, and look, I'm sad not to be there now, but I'm grateful to them for giving me the opportunity to work on air, and I'm hoping that it might lead to even bigger and better things now.
Yeah, I think the people doesn't really understand our duty, because they will just like get our tips, just like, oh, what would you like in this race, but they don't know how much effort or the homework that we have done, especially for the races overseas. For example, if we have to study the overseas form, from Hong Kong, that would be a little bit difficult because we need to get the source and also information from others. Right?
And it's very difficult. You can't just look at the past performances and just go, okay, this horse beat this horse. And you need to understand the regions and the jurisdictions, and every place in the world is different. So if you've got a simulcast race here from Japan, or a simulcast race from Australia or from France, they're all very, very different places, and you're looking for different things. And so I think it is something that is difficult to understand if you've never been exposed to it. And as you say, for tipsters like you and I, having to look at the form and come up with selections, we're also quite we're judged on how well we perform, and so it is very difficult, but it's also very rewarding when you get it right as well.
Any places or any races that you would like to take part? I know that you have been a lot of places already.
Look, I've been to plenty of jurisdictions. I've been to plenty of places. The two races that I haven't been to that I really want to go to, I've never been to an Arc, so I'd love to go to the Arc to see Longchamp and see just everything about Arc Day. The other one I've never been to is the Kentucky Derby. I'd love to go to Churchill Downs for the Kentucky Derby. But I've been to some amazing races. I've been racing in the States. I've been to a Breeders' Cup Classic and a couple of Arlington Millions. I've been to plenty in Australia. Been to a Japan Cup, and also seen a lot of Hong Kong horses racing in Japan as well, and Dubai a few times, South Africa, the UK. So I mean, I've been very, very lucky. But there's always still more that can be done.
So as I said, you make use of every opportunity, but just like last week, when you received the news that Sky Racing is no longer require your service, how do you at that moment, how do you face the difficult time? It
was very tough to hear. It was very difficult to know that you weren't wanted, and to know that you've been working hard and trying to produce some great content, and it didn't work out. But it's the way of the world. Things happen. I was very sad when I heard it. And
did they give you a reasonable advice?
No, they gave their reasoning, and they were very reasonable about it. Again, it's not something that I wasn't happy, and I don't think anyone would be, but they handled it as well as they could, and it was very respectful. But I do look forward to the future. I'm very excited about what's to come, and I think that I can take what I've learnt at Sky and hopefully apply it to another organisation somewhere.
But it's good that you receive a lot of support through the Twitter, that when you post the news about that, and then you receive a lot of people's messages. It's
been incredible, and I want to thank everyone who has reached out, and there's been plenty of people. It's just something that you just would never expect to see people so supportive. And when I'm in a studio, when I'm working there in the studio, it's very, very quiet. You're very much by yourself, and you just forget that you are actually talking to this large audience, and not just in Australia but around the world. So very, very grateful, and it's really humbling, and it's something that I'm very, very thankful for, and I hope that I'm able to keep proving informative to audiences for the future. What
attracts you the most to keep active in horse racing?
Look, horse racing is something that's been a passion of mine since my teens, but it's something that it's something that gets into your blood, and once you've got that racing bug, you just can't get it out. It's something that's just so thrilling and so exciting. There's a love for the horse. There's analysis. There's everything that works for my personality is related to horse racing. So there's so many aspects there, and there's such a great community as well. As we'll see here during HKIR, just so many people coming together to celebrate racing, and that's what I love.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew. I wish you all the best, and hopefully to see you in Hong Kong very soon.
Cheers, Ian. Thank you.